There's an idea deeply ingrained in the American psyche that our national parks are our greatest cathedrals. They are preserved snapshots of a wild continent before steel and concrete tamed it. Every year, nearly 300 million of us flock to Yellowstone, Yosemite, and the Great Smoky Mountains, seeking a connection with something pure. We stand on the edge of canyons, take our photos, walk the well-marked trails, and embrace the illusion of safety. Because that is what it is, an illusion. We forget that these parks are millions of acres of indifference. The wilderness does not care if you're experienced. It does not care about your gear. And it certainly does not care if you intend to return home. While most visitors leave with only memories, there's a darker statistic haunting America's public lands. According to some estimates, at any given moment, there are over 600 active missing persons cases on public lands in the United States. The true horror isn't just the numbers. People get lost, accidents happen. The horror lies in the cases that defy logic, the paradoxes, the vanishings that happen in the blink of an eye, leaving behind no physical evidence, no scent for tracking dogs, and a silence so profound it feels heavy. 145, The Anchor Story, Dennis Martin. To understand the depth of this mystery, we must go back to the case that proved just how quickly the wilderness can swallow a human being whole. June 14, 1969, in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. It was Father's Day weekend. The Martin family was camping at Spence Field, a beautiful, grassy bald high up on the Appalachian Trail. It is an idyllic spot surrounded by dense forest. Late in the afternoon, 9-year-old Dennis Martin, wearing a bright red t-shirt, a beacon against the green woods, decided to pull a prank on the adults. His father watched Dennis step behind a bush, intending to circle around and jump out to scare them. It was a matter of seconds. When Dennis didn't pop out, his father stood up and walked over to the bush. Dennis wasn't there. He called his name. Only silence bounced back from the dense rhododendron thickets. Panic didn't set in immediately. He couldn't have gone far. But as minutes stretched into hours, the reality dawned on them. By morning, the search for Dennis Martin had begun. It would become the largest search and rescue operation in national park history. 1,400 people, including the National Guard and seasoned Green Beret units, men trained in jungle tracking, scoured the area. They had helicopters and bloodhounds. They found nothing. Not a footprint. Not a piece of torn clothing. Not the bright red shirt that should have stood out like a flare on the forest floor. But one chilling detail emerged days later. On the afternoon, Dennis vanished. Another family hiking several miles away, deep in the valley, heard a scream. A terrifying, agonizing scream they described as almost inhuman. Shortly after, the father reported seeing a rough-looking man moving intensely through the trees, seemingly carrying something over his shoulder. Was it Dennis screaming? If so, how did a 9-year-old boy travel several miles through virtually impassable terrain in such a short time, without leaving a trace? The leads dissolved into the fog of the mountains. The Green Berets eventually pulled out, frustrated, stating the terrain was so rugged a man could be standing 5 feet away and you would never see him. Dennis Martin was never found. 510. The patterns and paradoxes. The Martin case is terrifying because of the scale of the response versus the zero results. But it's not unique. When researchers began collating data on these disappearances, strange commonalities began to emerge across decades. One of the most baffling phenomena is what searchers call paradoxical undressing. It is a known physiological reaction to extreme hypothermia. As the body freezes, the victim feels incredibly hot and strips off their clothes. When searchers find folded clothes in winter, they understand. But what about when it happens in the summer? What about cases where a hiker vanishes in mild weather, and months later, their neatly folded jeans and boots are found miles away from where they should be, with no body nearby? Then there are the impossible distances. Cases of toddlers, barely able to walk, vanishing from campgrounds. Days later, they are found, sometimes alive, often deceased, miles away and thousands of feet up in elevation. They are found in terrain that requires technical climbing gear to access. The official explanations often cite animal predation, or wandering off, but the physics simply do not add up. Experienced hikers talk about a feeling you get in deep parts of the American wilderness. It's not just the fear of bears. It's an older fear, a sensation of being watched from all sides. The feeling that the silence around you is expectant. You step off the trail for just a moment, and suddenly the landmarks are gone. Panic sets in. In that state of panic, humans do irrational things. We run. We burrow into tight spaces. This psychological break explains many tragedies. But does it explain them all? Does it explain the baffling silence of highly trained cadaver dogs? In dozens of high-profile cases, bloodhounds that could track a scent through rain days later will arrive at the point last seen, sit down, and refuse to move. Their handlers describe the dogs as being terrified. It's as if the scent simply stops existing on this plane of reality. 8:30. The forbidden wilderness. So what is happening out there? We know the wilderness is a perfect hiding place for human predators. Serial killers have utilized national parks due to the vast jurisdictional confusion between state and federal lands. It is highly probable some of these people cross paths with evil wearing human face. But human predators leave traces. They leave tire marks, shell casings, campsites. The most disturbing cases are the ones with absolute zero physical evidence. This lack of evidence leads us back to stories told on this continent long before it was mapped by the Park Service. Every indigenous tribe in North America has oral traditions warning against going too deep into certain forests. They speak of entities that inhabit the threshold between our world and the wild. The Algonquin peoples speak of the Wendigo, a spirit of insatiable hunger that lures victims away. In the Pacific Northwest, traditions speak of forest spirits that whistle and bang on trees, disorienting travelers until they are hopelessly lost. Modern society dismisses these as myths. But when you read search reports from 2024 describing a solo hiker hearing their name called from the deep woods, or a child saying they were led away by a fuzzy man, the old myths suddenly feel terrifyingly relevant. 10:40. Conclusion. We want to believe that our national parks are playgrounds. We want to believe that if we get into trouble, a ranger in a helicopter will swoop down and save us. And often they do. The search and rescue teams in this country are heroic, tireless professionals. But they will be the first to tell you that sometimes the wilderness wins. Sometimes the forest just opens up and takes someone. We may never know what happened to Dennis Martin on that grassy bald in 1969. We may never know the fate of the thousands whose names remain on missing persons posters at trailheads across the country. The next time you visit a national park, by all means marvel at the view. Breathe the fresh air. But when you feel that sudden urge to step off the trail just to see what's over that next ridge, remember the silence. Remember that you are entering a realm that operates on rules much older and much colder than our own. Stay on the trail. And never, ever assume you are alone out there.